Hello, folks, and welcome to a very much so a hurricane-related weather topic. This is this weather topic today actually is going to be looking at the Hurricane Severity Index, which is something that is pretty obscure. I hadn't heard too much of it until pretty recently. Thought it was very interesting, so decided, hey, I should make a video on it. So that's what this is. So, what in the world is the HSI, as I'm going to be calling it for short now? The Hurricane Severity Index is simply a proposed replacement or alternative to the Saffir Simpson wind scale, the current system of measuring hurricanes that is used by the United States. By no means is there anything wrong with the Saffir Simpson scale. Just want to put that up front there. There's nothing wrong with it. There is just more things that needs to be measured from a hurricane other than just the maximum winds. The HSI is on a point scale. 50 points is the maximum. These 50 points are determined evenly. 25 points go to each on the wind size of the storm as well as the wind intensity of the storm. What these two things do is measure the potential impact that a hurricane has on land way, 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 way better than the Saffir Simpson does. I'll be bringing this up constantly because all that the Saffir does is just measure wind speeds. So, what do I mean by the wind size and wind intensity? Hopefully, the wind intensity is pretty straightforward. So, the wind size is measuring the coverage of the wind fields that are 39 miles per hour, 58, 74, and also 100 miles per hour. If you have a really big wind field, or just if you have, okay, so say that you have a wind field that goes up to 100 miles per hour. Inside of that, you're going to have a range that goes down to 74. Inside of that, 58. Inside of that, 39. Or kind of actually outwards. Sorry, my mistake there. It's the opposite for hurricanes. So your innermost is going to be 100. Your further out 74, further than that 58, further than that 39. So not the inward but the outward parts. This is again a maximum you can get from this is 25 points. So 10, 8, 4, and 3. And so again, those reaching 25 maximum, those can vary from 1 to 10. So there's that little thing for you. The wind intensity, however, is much more straightforward. 1 point for 35 miles per hour. 25 points goes to winds that are above 175 miles per hour, not winds that are at 175 or above. It is winds purely just above 175. This is already more than, just under 20 miles per hour of the Category 5 threshold. Category 5 needs 157 and above. So, already well above that there. Pardon me. So, what exactly are some examples of this? To be fair, I wasn't quite understanding it. So, the examples that the source and the description provided really helped me with understanding this. So I hope that it does the same for everyone watching because, again, I didn't fully understand it until I saw the examples. So our graph here is that, okay, there is a circle around Ike. This is because the source slide on the source, again, that'll be in the description, was comparing Ike and Dennis, which isn't even on this graph. It's actually on the previous one. This one in the very first slide. Let me just skip through that there. Okay, sorry. So it's on the previous graph, not this one, which is weird, but I digress. So just get into the examples. Okay, I will. I'm sorry. Let's say Andrew. Andrew had a maximum HSI of 27. Andrew had a wind field of 11 and a wind intensity of 16 on the HSI. This is different than the landfall HSI of Andrew, because HSI can be measured at almost any point in a tropical storm's life. The best two that you can do, though, are measuring it at its maximum wind intensity to get a comparison between the size of the wind field and then the intensity of the storm, and then one at landfall, which may, at that point, the hurricane may have a larger wind size but a lesser intensity. So, in this point, this is the maximum intensity of Andrew. I believe Andrew reached 175 miles per hour, so a very intense Category 5, but just a relatively smaller wind field. Wilma is a great example of how diverse the HSIs can be for a storm. I have to go up here again at the very beginning. Note that Wilma has two separate HSI indicators on this first graph. So that's at maximum wind and then the maximum HSI. Sorry about all that back and forth there. This one that Wilma has at the time is 30. So a wind size of only 5. However, reaching winds of 185 miles per hour. So a wind intensity scale of 25, the maximum. Very fair in my opinion. This shows, again, you can have an extremely intense hurricane, but if the wind field isn't that large, you're not going to have that kind of damage that you expect from a Category 5 storm. If you're only experiencing tropical storm force or Category 1 force winds. Ivan actually has a higher HSI than Wilma at 32. Ivan's landfall HSI was that for 20 for the size and 12 for the intensity. Ivan had an extremely large wind field upon landfall and landfell at winds of 120 miles per hour. Katrina is just a little bit larger than Ivan at 36. Katrina also had a very large wind field, even larger than Ivan's, having a score of 23 for wind size and 13 for intensity. Katrina landfell with winds of 125 miles per hour. Even larger HSI numbers come from Carla, which had 42, 25 for size, and 17 for intensity. Carla was described almost the moment it became a tropical storm as being extremely large throughout its entire life, and landfell at winds of 145 miles per hour, although given the 17 here, Carla did become a Category 5, reaching, I believe it was, 165, I believe it was, miles per hour. Lastly, the nearly perfect score, 49 out of 50, comes from 1988's Gilbert. Gilbert had 24 for size and 25 for intensity. Gilbert at the time had an extremely large wind field and also had winds of 185 miles per hour. I don't know about you, but that is very scary. Again, given that the HSI is a much better descriptor of the potential damage on land, I would absolutely pay attention if a meteorologist said that Gilbert has a HSI of 49 out of 50, so expect the worst. I would absolutely take notice. So, why does a new scale need to be done? Why can't we just use the Saffir-Simpson? Well, first of all, we are indeed still using the Saffir-Simpson wind scale, but there's limitations to only measuring wind speed. Think of tropical storms. They're kind of just a joke, kind of. They're not. They're really just the intermediary to get to hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Granted, um, this is the exact same for almost any tropical storm scale worldwide. It doesn't really matter what scale it is because they all just measure wind speed and only wind speed. But it's especially defining, again, I'll say it again and again and again, when you're just measuring wind speed. It just doesn't take into consideration depressions and tropical storms. Also, size is not taken into consideration on the Saffir-Simpson scale at all. And size plays a major role in the storm surge that you're going to get, the amount of rainfall that you're going to receive, and the duration of the storm the time that the storm will be over your area. Now, forward speed also plays a part in all three of these, but size is the second major factor here. Also, with just measuring maximum winds, you have the problem of them being usually pretty isolated to just the eye wall and that's it, which is a good thing. You don't want the entire storm to have wind speeds of 185 miles per hour. But again, measuring just wind speed is pretty limiting. And the Saffir-Simpson really assumes that all hurricanes are alike. Just look at Andrew and Ivan and Gilbert, specifically the wind field size. Ivan had a much larger wind size than Andrew, and Gilbert had a much larger wind size than Ivan. Those play major roles for how much damage you're going to receive. And again, this is just simply just makes it a better indicator of the potential damage. Again, there's nothing wrong with the Saffir-Simpson scale. There's just problems with just measuring winds. So just adding something in there makes a huge difference, possibly with people paying attention, because you can say, oh no, we get category 3s, 4s, and 5s all the time. But if you say that this storm has 32 points out of 50, people are probably more likely to take notice. Well, with that, folks, that is all that I have on the Hurricane Severity Index. I hope that you all learned something from this video, the same that I did while researching it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.